Hey guys, it's Taylor. And look, if you are a Texas Tech baseball fan, then you are probably here because our guest today is someone whose career you followed for a really long time. When he was here at Texas Tech, a 7-year career in the major leagues, a 2009 graduate from Texas Tech, but a Lubbock native. I'm so happy that you're here, AJ.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to this. A mutual, I guess, acquaintance, Scott Lacefield, hit me
Yes.
up, and I hadn't talked to him in a while, and he asked me if I would be willing to do this, and I looked up a few videos, and I was like, of course, it looks really cool. So then being able to do it in the baseball facility is even better. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and I know that you've obviously come back to campus quite a bit since you left in 2009, and you've been able to be part of a lot of the good things that are happening, not only on campus for Texas Tech baseball, but just with all of athletics in general. But this wasn't here when you were here. And so when you get to come back and be part of still just the legacy of Texas Tech baseball and to be able to celebrate all the good new gifts that are coming in this current season, what is that like for you just to kind of come back and participate and maybe still just be part of that family in that way?
It's really cool. Growing up, my dad, my family always talked about leaving a place better than whenever you got there.
It's good.
And so whenever I was able to get to the big leagues and make some money, I wanted to donate here. So being able to donate and give my respects and to help out and to help with this facility is amazing. And then so being able to come back here and then talk to players, because we didn't really have very many big leaguers coming back to talk to us. And I know that when I was in college, especially when I was in college, I would have loved to talk to a big leaguer to get the understanding of what to expect. How should I build the bridge to go to the big leagues? So when I come back here, I came back to a couple practices, and they invited me here. So being able to be around the guys and just they can pick my brain, or if I have something to say to somebody, if I see something, I'm always trying to do something or say something to help out, because I know how important it is to these guys to try to get to the next level. And yeah, it's a cool thing to be here, being from here as well. It adds another level. So I'm extremely grateful.
It's so valuable to go off and to live life and to have success in whatever capacity that looks like, and to be able to return back to the place that really kind of was the catalyst for you, or the place that it started, and almost be able to sort of like hand back the life experiences. I think that's really valuable. And I wonder, what's maybe the most important thing that you always try to remember to tell them when you do speak to a team? Is there like one in particular message that you're like, man, if I'd have known that when I was in college?
There's not really one message, because it takes so many, it takes a lot of things to make it to the next level and to be able to stay there. So I guess maybe the main emphasis that I talk about is the mental side of things, because it doesn't matter. When I got drafted and there was so much talent around me. I'd never seen talent like this before, but I started to realize that talent only got you to a certain point, and hard work is an important part too. But if you don't have the mental ability to be able to handle and endure the failures or even the successes of it, then you're not going to be very successful, because both of those, the failures influence you to do things, maybe try too hard, and the successes can influence you to maybe be complacent, or maybe think too highly of yourselves, and then that falters on the work. So both of those paths mess with your work ethic. If you're doing too well, sometimes you don't work as hard. If you're doing bad, you overwork. And when you get into either of those things, you're so far from your centered self that you're not accurately assessing who you really are and what you can bring to the game. So that's one of the things that I try to tell young guys. And I like to talk to college kids, because they can understand that. Tell to a high school guy, maybe they don't quite understand it. I got to change the language a bit. But I think one of the main things is other than hard work, is making sure you have your mentals in check, basically.
That's so hard. And it's such an important, that was all really good. Like that, all of what you said was so profound. And when you and I talked on the phone for the first time, you said, man, like I was always the guy that was maybe a little bit, I think the word you used was like overlooked a little bit. And that taught you to really do everything in baseball and in life kind of with a chip on your shoulder. And I just wonder, what is that approach? How did that approach maybe foster like a sense of just competitive nature and like the ability to sort of overcome challenges in you as it relates to baseball, but maybe even more importantly, as it relates to life?
Well, yeah, you see me walk in, I'm not very tall, I'm 5'10". Even my attributes, I didn't throw 100 miles an hour. Usually guys that are pitchers that are my size are throwing 95 to 100 with some electric stuff. I knew that I was good enough to be in the big leagues. I just had to figure out how to get there. So, and at every level, I was challenged. When I was in high school, I was challenged. When I got to college, challenged. And instead of being like, why do I always have to prove myself? I use that as my motivation. I tried to find ways to get better. And my mental outlook on it was, I would look at everyone out there. All right, what can I bring that these guys don't? How can I stand out amongst all this great talent? And that's where the hard work came in. I made sure that even whenever I was running poles or conditioning here or lifting weights, I was always trying to be the guy that was the hardest worker. I knew that if I was working the hardest and I was stayed coachable, it would be hard to not give me more opportunities because one, I'm a good kid. I'm trying to be good, and I'm coachable. So I understood that I was going to be overlooked in some aspects, and I knew that was going to. I wouldn't be the role that I wanted to until I had to earn it. So I had to work my way up so that when I did get that opportunity, I made the most of it. And that was something that I just constantly. I saw everything as a challenge, and then it ended up being that I could only pitch when I was in the big leagues if there was a great challenge. So when I was closing out ball games, if it was a safe situation, I was good. When our team was losing by a lot or we were winning by a lot and they wanted just to get me work, my play never was the same. So I grew accustomed to it, and it was something that I relished in, and I loved it.
The pressure.
Love the
pressure of those moments.
I love the pressure. Yeah. And it just brings the most out of you because it's like, all right, the game is counting on you. It's up to you. How are you going to get through this? Are you good enough to complete this challenge? And of course there was always a voice inside of my head saying yes, always like accepting those challenges, knowing that I could do anything. Even when sometimes there was another voice in there saying, but what about this? And what if this? What if that? Everyone has that voice. It's just the people that overcome challenges and the people that succeed, that other voice is so much louder. Yeah. Or for me, that voice was louder, but for other people, they have different ways to navigate those insecurities or the fears so that they don't influence them to do, to pitch bad or perform bad or whatever it is. So that's that little voice in my head was always screaming like, you got this, you can do it. So and I think that probably came from my parents.
Yeah, I think it speaks to your mental toughness to be able to not only identify that voice of negativity, but to be able to silence it. That's so important. You said something a little bit earlier that I want to come back to. You talked about how you had always known that you had the ability of being able to play at the highest level. And when you and I talked on the phone for the first time, and I was asking you to do this, you talked about how there was one person who was really just profoundly important in your path to getting to Texas Tech, and that was the pitching coach at the time when you were a senior at Estacado High School. And I want to just allow you the opportunity to maybe talk about him and the impact that it had to have somebody come along and say, I really feel like you're worth the risk. I really feel like I want to go and I want to give you this shot and surprise me here. Tell me about that.
So it was the coach was Lance Brown. He came after another pitching coach, and he was here the whole time I was here. And he saw something in me. But before all of that, I think what led to my belief in self was I loved the game, and I loved playing it. And it never dawned on me that I wasn't good enough to be in the big leagues even from when I was 5 years old, but because my parents cultivated it. My parents fanned those flames. They were never like, no, we need to do this. And that, not many people make it to the big leagues. Maybe you want to try to do something else. Like they were always like, okay, well, let's work. And my dad My dad is the one that, he's like, oh, you want to make it? This is what you have to do. And I don't know how he knew the path to the big leagues. And maybe some of it was ignorance, but ignorance is bliss sometimes. So
Sure.
there was never a moment where I didn't believe I wasn't good enough to be in the big leagues. And all the way up until my senior year, the coach that was here before, the pitching coach that was here before Lance Brown came to watch me pitch and was like, nah, he didn't have it. And that like fueled another fire in me. I'm like, oh yeah, and then so I went on other recruiting visits. I ended up signing with New Mexico Junior College. And so I was set to go there. And then they fired the other guy. Lance Brown came in, went to watch one of my high school games. And I don't even think I even did that well. But I think it was the next day, I went in Coach Larry Hayes' office, and it was him and it was Lance Brown. And he said, I don't know why you didn't get a scholarship or you weren't,
Evaluated before.
Yeah, he said, but you're right in our backyard and it just makes sense to bring you on with Tech. And that was one of the coolest moments.
Yeah. What did you think? Were you
was-
just overwhelmed at that, like an 18-year-old kid in this position? Were you just like, oh my gosh, my dream?
Yeah, it was cool because I was wondering how it's going to work out with junior college. I was going to move away. I have a huge family here. And then once they told me that they're giving me an opportunity to come here, I started thinking about, wow, like most of the stands are going to be my family, my friends, and they're going to be able to watch. I'll be able to stay at home, still get some of my mom's home cooking.
So great.
So that was really cool. And I was just excited for the opportunity. And it was a moment of like, I knew I was good enough. And so now my mindset changed really quickly from, all right, this is amazing, to I got to prove him right. And I got to show that I am good enough to be here. And it just fueled me. And every time I felt tired, we used to have 6 a.m. workouts at the bubble. That's not there anymore. And those 6 a.m. workouts, I was waking up, I was maybe tired. I started thinking about what the other coaches would say. And all throughout my career, there was people that told me that maybe I didn't have the killer instinct, one of the guys said, when I was 14 years. I don't know how you can tell 14-year-old, the killer instinct. But, those coaches that would maybe say some things and I would internalize it, but I wouldn't make it that negative voice in my head. I would make it the motivating voice whenever something I didn't want to do something, or whenever I felt like I couldn't do something, I would replay that voice like, oh, you're proving him right. And then I would figure out a way to overcome whatever challenge that was. So it's being able to use all of your thoughts at your disposal for whenever you need them. The negative, the positive, the neutral, the calming, there's so many experiences that you have in your life that you can draw from to supply you whatever energy you need in any moment of life. So when my path to the big leagues, I was trying to figure out every way to be a better baseball player. And little did I know, some of it was to be a better human as well. But I was always searching, what foods can I eat? What books can I read? What workouts? What shows, what TV shows will I watch? When I was feeling down, I'll watch certain TV shows to get me up. When I was feeling too hype, I'd watch other TV shows or books or listen to certain music to get me down. So everything, there's ways to success all around you. And when your mind is geared towards being successful, you're going to find a way to be successful. So all of that stuff, would go on in my mind. So whenever I got the opportunity to pitch here, I was thinking, all right, I may not be a starter. I may not be on they used to have those, the calendars where they had like certain players on there. And I'm like, I want to be on that dang calendar, and I may not have been on there, but I'm all right. I'm gonna make sure that when I do get my first opportunity to pitch, that I'm gonna show out. And I believe it was my freshman year. It was in New Mexico, in Albuquerque. The guy, I can't remember who was starting, but he was getting lit. I mean, in Albuquerque is a tough place to pitch. Ball flies there. And I remember one of the guys hitting a home run over the scoreboard. And I was like, oh, wow. The phone rings. They said, hey, Ramos, get up. And I think it may have been the third inning. And I came in the third inning. I was a freshman. It was cold. And I pitched from the third inning and I finished out the game, I believe. Oh. and I did well. And then after that, they were like, well, maybe he's going to be, he should be a starter. But I remember being in the bullpen and I'm thinking, this is your opportunity. And it was cold. We were losing by a lot. These guys were hitting home runs. None of that crossed my mind. It was like, this is your opportunity. And I kind of liked that there were those guys were so good at that time, so I can show them how much better I was than my teammate. And it wasn't like I'm better than you. It was like it was showing that I was just as good, that you should look at me the same way you're looking at him, you know? So I was able to go in there and do my thing. So it was, every opportunity that I got, I tried to maximize it and I try to be ready, because you never know when you're going to get another one.
Yeah. And so much of it too. I remember one time, it was Holly Rowe, and she was here on campus doing something with the men's basketball team. And I just asked her, like, what's your best piece of advice? And she said, treat every moment like it's the most important of your career.
Yeah.
Because you never know who's watching and you never know what you might do. So every single time that you get up, that moment right there, that is the most important rep.
Right.
And I think that a lot of it too is like, for you in that time, I can imagine like you're trying to figure out as a freshman, like, what is my role? Like, who am I? What's my identity on this team?
Yeah.
And it doesn't, success sometimes is like when you come to the end of it and when you reach success after all this time. But sometimes succeeding is just like being in the moment and doing that moment well.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I just feel like I've been part of, sports before I worked in this capacity. I did athletics for 4 years here at Tech, and it was just so many times you hear coaches talk, and it's coaches talk, like to be in the moment.
Yeah,
but
be present.
Yeah, but it's so valuable too.
It is. Because if you're not in the present moment, you're thinking of the future, you're thinking of the past. And you're not gearing your mind to be successful right then and there. There are times, like even when I was on the mound and I didn't feel right, I wasn't trying to be another version of myself. I was trying to be the version of that I am that day, so that I can navigate whatever the situation that's in front of me. Because if you're trying to be a version of yourself that you're no longer, that you're just not that day for whatever reason, then you're wasting your energy and you're resisting. You're in a defensive mindset instead of an offensive mindset.
That's good.
So I was always trying to be on the offense. And it's funny because being on offense as a pitcher is weird, but it's just more the mentality. Is always attacking, never being defensive and trying to throw. The word try shouldn't be in your vocabulary. It's either do or don't. I did or I didn't. All right. So if I did, then what do I do to keep doing it? If I didn't, then how do I do? So it's being present is important. And the cool thing about it is I focus on that so much that in life it helped me be a little bit more present as well. And that's something that is valuable, especially having kids, because from when my 3-year-old was born until now, the time just went like that. And I got a little bit of a heads up, basically, because my big league career, it felt like I just got called up last year. Like from 2012 until when I retired in 2022, it felt like a blink of an eye. And I'm like, what happened? How am I here? So I got a little bit of a heads up saying, all right, things go really fast. Things that you love to do, you're having fun doing, can go really fast. So my goal is to be even more present than I was in baseball, so that I can slow down life. Because you think about it, when you're in class, I remember being in high school and looking up at the clock and I'm like, all right, we got an hour. And I'm sitting there listening to the teacher and I look up and it's been 30 minutes. And I look up, I'm like, 5 minutes just passed? Like, that's it, like it just, because you're sitting there thinking about the time. You're present about your mind is geared towards the time or whatever. You're present. So it kind of slows things down a bit. And in life, I feel like we're always looking towards the weekend, or we're looking towards a family trip or a vacation, that sometimes we're skipping over vital days that maybe when we're old, we're going to miss. Like, I wish I was there. I remember when I was back there, it went so fast, but just because we're looking forward so much that we're missing the present.
Or sometimes our heads are down so much that we just can't even, and gosh, you're so right. Time is such a thief. And I think seems so crazy that 10 years ago was when you were in the MLB All-Star game in 2016, right?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That's really crazy. Yeah. that felt like a blur. That was really hard to be present for because I always thought, I didn't know what thought about like being in the actual All-Star game. That was one of the goals of mine, to be an All-Star. And when I was there, there's so many things that you have to do. There's meetings, there's interviews, there's a parade, there's all these different things, and you really barely have time to get ready to play the game. And so it flew by so fast. I just remember, being the next day after the All-Star game thinking, wow, that was fast, and I'm tired from it. I need another All-Star break. So now I think a lot of people felt that way because now there's an extra off day after the All-Star game now. Because I think when you play in the All-Star game, it's not really a break. You're flying from whatever city you're in, whatever city you just played in, whether that be a home field or away field, and you're flying straight to the next place where the All-Star game
the
is.
appearances.
And then you're doing interviews, you're doing radio hits, you're doing all these different things, which is a blessing. It's really cool. It's a cool experience, but it's not really a time off. And in a game, especially whenever I played, and again, it changed a little bit now. I mean, sometimes we play 18 games in a row. There was one time we were supposed to have an off day, but because a game between us and that team got rained out, we had to play on our off day. We ended up playing like 24 games in a row without a day off.
Good night.
And that's most of the time it's 3-game series. And on the road, when you go on a road trip, it's like 9 games on the road. And then you go to like a home stand, then you go another road. So we did that for almost 3 weeks straight. And again, traveling. And it was tough, but, off days were very important. Now, again, they changed that to where there's at least 4 off days a month, whereas before, I think that was like 6 or 7 off days total or something like that. It was crazy.
I think about, people can tell you all day long, like, here's my advice, here's what I've experienced. And that maybe can create an expectation for you, but it will never compare to actually living it.
Right.
And so I wonder if you might kind of be able to articulate, what was your expectation when you get drafted in the 21st round and you're like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going to go live this next season of my dream, and I'm going to go do this thing that I've known that I could do since I was 5 years old. When you get in it and you start realizing, man, this is also hard too. Like, how did you sort of create the balance between appreciating the value of where you were while also managing the fact that, like, it's really hard to be away from home like that and to be living the travel schedule that you just mentioned?
So, my first time away from home was when I got drafted because I got to go to college here. So I was always here in Lubbock and with my family. So after I got drafted, first of all, they thought I spoke Spanish. So they put me into
Do you speak any Spanish?
No, and that's one of my biggest regrets. I mean, I understand Spanish. I could like get by, but I'm not fluid. And talking to my family Spanish, who is Mexican, is different than Dominican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, especially Dominican Spanish. They don't say their words all the way, and they speak very, very fast. So I can't even, I'm like sitting there looking, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Oh, gosh.
And you look at me and you would think I speak Spanish, right? And I walk into my hotel room and we're sharing a room, and it's 3 other Dominican guys, and they start talking Spanish to me. I'm like, hi. And they're like looking at me like, what do you like, you don't speak Spanish? So I went from that and I moved. So my first year in pro ball was in Jamestown, New York, in upstate New York. And that's not one of the most ideal places to be. It was a little bit sketchy. And so, but one of the cool things is they had dorms there. So it was like 4 separate rooms. And of course, because they thought I spoke Spanish, they put me with the Spanish speakers, which was a cool experience because those guys literally come from nothing. A lot of those guys are really, really poor. But one of the coolest things I saw is that they pulled all their money together all the time, and they went to Walmart or whatever to go buy food, and they cooked for everybody. Like they had one little packet of chicken, right? And it was 14 of us. And I'm like, no, I didn't put in. You guys are like, no, Ramos, vamos, come on, eat. And I'm like, okay. So I'm eating like one little leg and some rice and stuff. So those guys, it was a really cool experience. And they moved me from I was a starter in college, and as soon as I got to pro ball, they're like, you're gonna be a reliever. So I was like, all right, you just throw as hard as you can, and I'm gonna be even better now. And I was throwing the highest velocity I've thrown in my life. I was throwing like 94, and guys are just hitting it off the wall. I didn't find success at all for the first like few outings. And knowing that I was drafted as a senior signed for $1,000, they're not going to give me as good of an opportunity, as many opportunities as the first rounder who signed for like 2.5 million, right? So I was expendable. So I had to figure out real fast how do I find success? So I stuck to my method. I worked out with the first rounder. I lifted more weights than him. I ran faster than him. I was making sure that I was available. I was working out. And I remember getting on the phone call with my dad, and it was horrible service there. And I called him and I was telling him, like, man, I don't know, I'm getting, basically having a pity party. And my dad was like, what are you talking about? He's like, this is not the mentality that you should have. This is an opportunity. I don't want you to be worrying about, oh, they're going to release me. Oh, I'm not going to have opportunities. That is, again, my mind was in the future and I was making a bad path to that future. Whatever you see in your mind, you're going to find a way to get there. So if I kept that same mentality, I'd have been still pitching bad. I'd have been trying too hard, and I would have found my way out of pro ball. But then I started switching my mind to like, get better. Oh, I had a bad outing yesterday. Okay, find a way to get better. Not, oh no, I'm getting closer to be released. So I switched my mindset, then ended up finding success and ended up finding my way to being a closer. And that was by accident, because in short season, they don't allow pitchers to pitch back to back. So if you pitch one day, then you get a day off the next day, and so on. And I had pitched the day before, and it was a safe situation. They had signed this guy from Arkansas, I believe, who was supposed to be like a closer in the making, and his name was Roberts, I believe. And our manager said, hey, told one of the Latin guys, hey, get Roberts ready. He didn't hear him right, and ran down to the bullpen, which the bullpen was in an area where the manager couldn't see. And he said, hey, Ramos, get ready. And I said, me? Yeah, Ramos, go. And I said, oh, okay. So I got my cleats on because I was supposed to be off. I start throwing, and the manager comes out and motions to me, and I'm running out of the bullpen.
No way.
And he looks, and he throws his hands up, but then it's too late because he already called me. I'm in the game. And then he goes, come on. And then so I got up there, and he goes, Ramos, I don't know what you're doing here. I don't know why you're throwing, but this next guy, which is Xavier Scruggs, who is now in the media side of things, do not throw him a fastball inside. That's what he hits. All right, let's just get out of this game. Let's get this win. I said, okay. And the catcher was like, all right, what do you throw? And I told him, and I was like, hey, we're going fastball inside in the first pitch.
Oh, boy.
And throw a fastball in. He kind of does a little check and looks at me like, okay. Then I throw a slider or something. Then I throw another fastball inside to strike him out. And I looked into the dugout at my manager, and I shook my head. And then it's funny because, and then I closed out the ball game, and then I saw him years later after everything, and he was a coach for the Pirates. And I talked to him about that moment. He goes, dude, you got me in trouble with that. He said, I had to make a phone call and tell them why you pitched back to back, but it was good because I actually got to tell them that, hey, you need to start taking a deeper look at this guy as being a late inning reliever, because he's someone that has the mentality for it. So it was a blessing.
I love that story. And it was like, it's such a happy accident. But I think too, it goes back to like being able to be present in those moments and to be tough. And when you're not expecting it, for someone to kind of call your number and for you to be forced to respond. I also think that your dad just seems so awesome. And how powerful is it to have people in our life that tell us that we shouldn't listen to our fear? Like that phone call that you made to him where you're kind of like, Dad, this is just not what I expected. To have someone be like, not your cheerleader, but to be your teammate in that moment. That's so cool.
I'm more of the guy that responds to lighting a fire under my butt. There are times, of course, where I need the pat on the back, but most of all, I need someone to get me out of my mental soup, because we all have it. And to be able to call my dad, and I don't know if it would have worked differently if he was like, "Oh, I feel your pain, son. That's so hard." And I think that would have helped cultivate more thoughts and just justify those thoughts a little bit instead of being like, "What are you talking about?" And because he's like, the main thing is you're playing a game. This isn't surgery. This isn't life and death. You're playing a game, man. Like how can this matter? Or how can this make you feel this way? And not to like not justify my feelings, but it's not that important. You know, it is important in the sense of like what I'm trying to do, but it's not life and death. So like to be able to zoom out of your problems is a superpower, because then you can look at it from your aligned self, not your emotional self. I think when you look at things through your emotion, you see whatever you're putting out there. I mean, there is as much good as bad out there. It's what frequency are you tuned into? And so for me, I was always trying to zoom into the good side of things, or the things that to help me succeed, not the reasons why I can't. Because there is a long list of why I shouldn't have succeeded, but I didn't think about that. Because if you think about what you're up against, especially in the moment, then you're not in the moment, right? You're just thinking about all the situation. Even certain situations, whenever I was in bases loaded situations, I never felt like the bases were loaded. I never thought about, oh no, the bases are loaded. Like there's nowhere to put them. It was like, I still got to pitch this guy at the plate, you know? So it's all perspective. And my dad was constantly there to give me perspective to make sure that I was in the right direction, because it's easy to get off that track.
I want to talk a little bit about that 2019, 2020, 2021, when you're maybe starting to recognize that it's time to start looking ahead. It's time to start figuring out what the next season of my life is going to look like. And I feel like for all athletes, whether you stop playing after high school or college or when your professional career is over, there's just this season of transition where you're having to recognize that I'm not an athlete anymore. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could kind of talk about what that experience was like for you and how you knew after that 2021 season, like, okay, this is it.
Yeah, it was funny because I was a roommate with Giancarlo Stanton from 2013 until 19. We lived together in the off season, and then during the season, because we both played for the Marlins, lived together during then. And then I got traded to New York 2017, and then he got traded to the Yankees 2018. And then so we were like, yeah, we'll just live together again. So it was pretty cool experience. But we always talked about trying to separate ourselves from being a baseball player. And I thought I was doing a pretty good job. Every time we would go home, we'd be at the apartment or whatever. I would never watch baseball. We never talked about baseball. The only time we did baseball is whenever we were playing. Then after that, we're done. We never talked about anything. So I was trying to separate myself because I knew that was an important part. And then I had surgery in 2018 while with the Mets, and I was really disappointed because I really wanted to prove that, because New York was one of the places that I wanted to play my whole life, because I knew that there was extreme pressure, and if you can play well there, you can play anywhere. And that to me was the biggest challenge, other than making the playoffs, which I never got to do, and making a World Series. So, you know, playing in New York I was really excited. Then I had surgery. And then when I was coming back from it, it was just different. So I tore it in 2014, my labrum. I got a cortisone shot and was able to pitch through it. 2016, my All-Star year, actually, I felt a little bit of pain every day. And that was probably like, from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, probably like a 3 to 5. And then 2017, it was more like 7s, 6s, 7s, 8s. And I was like, all right, this is getting tough. And then 18, my performance started to really go down. And I was like, well, now I can't hide it. I'm playing bad. So got surgery on my labrum. And that was really tough because I only had a 1-year deal with New York. So I finished out 18, and then I was on my own. And one of the biggest things that you have to have is continuity with your rehab. So I had surgery. I lived out my contract in New York, so I had my people there. And then I moved to LA for the off season like I normally do. So then I had to have a different set of people there. And then when LA was done, I moved to Florida and I had separate people. So it was, everyone shared notes, but you really have to have the same person day in, day out to help you get through that. And I didn't have that. And so that was some of the toughest times for me to get back to myself, because I was no longer the version before, because after you have a shoulder surgery, it's like a horse breaking his leg, especially for a pitcher. It's like you're kind of done. Now the surgery's getting better, but still I was 35 years old or whatever it was, 35 years old, which is in baseball life, that's like 50. And so you're like, all right, I got to really get back, or I got to be better than before in order to get opportunity. And I was trying, finally got signed with the Angels I signed with the Dodgers in 2020, and they gave me an opportunity. And that was such a weird year because of obviously COVID. There was no fans in the stands. I was actually at the alternate site for the Dodgers the whole time, which is at USC. And we were just scrimmaging basically at 11 a.m. every morning. And I saw that I wasn't going to get any opportunity to go to the big leagues there. And their front office was like, hey, we understand that being in the big leagues is the most important to you. You want to get back sooner. You do have an opportunity here, but if another team grants you a faster opportunity, we will give you your release to do that. And sure enough, the Rockies called. I ended up making my debut there in Colorado against the Dodgers. And it's one of the moments I regret, because I wish I would have stayed with the Dodgers, because they ended up winning the World Series there. I would have definitely been called up at least, because with my experience. So yeah, that was something that
you couldn't have known.
No way. No, I could have known. But so then I signed with the Angels in 21, and every day was level 8 pain. And I was thinking I shouldn't have got the surgery, because sometimes before surgery, there was times where I didn't have as much pain, but every day was painful. And then I started to enter my head, the pain. The pain was something that I could no longer, I was able to overcome it, but my body wouldn't allow me to.
Yeah.
When you're hurt, think about like when you limp, right? You can try not to limp, but your body knows that you're compromised, so it subtly does it for you. And in a game of inches, where if my release point is here and I move 2 inches right here, that's a ball. That's 2 feet at the plate. An inch here is 2 feet at the plate. So when I was throwing, I would get to a certain point where my normal release point is, and then I would guard. My arm would do this and guard, and I couldn't stop it because you're moving so fast. And so it started to mess with how I pitched. And it was just very, very tough. I was with it was my girlfriend at the time, but now my wife. And I credit her, because I was not in a good mood for the most of that time. It was because I identified myself as an athlete. And even though I tried to take the steps before that to separate myself from a baseball player and a pitcher, it really let me know that I didn't do a good job of it, and that I was so ingrained in it, because most of my life was set up to be the best pitcher I could be. Even I would wake up at a certain time when I was in the big leagues, because I knew that if I woke up at a certain time, depending on what time the game was, I could peak at a certain hour, which is my pitching hours. So everything was geared towards that. I wasn't pitching the way I wanted to. I was in AAA. I got called up in 21 to the big leagues in September, pitched like 5 games. And then I was like, all right, cool. I got back up. I'm signed back with the Angels. It's 2022, and I'm having a good camp. And I go to pitch which would be my final time on the mound. And I finally get that layback point that I want. I'm like, there's that feeling. And then the next pitch, pop, my shoulder comes out of its socket this way. So it pops front because I'm laying back. So it pops out this way. And the only way it popped in is because I internally rotate your arm whenever you throw, and it popped back in. And I kind of grabbed it, and I'm like, oh no, I think I just tore it again. And I was like, no. There's no way. I've done so much work. My whole day was revolved around priming my arm to go compete. So I grabbed the ball, and I'm like, no, I'm throwing another pitch. And then, so I throw the same pitch. I think it was a changeup. And I throw it again, and it pops out again, pops back in. And I'm like, oh my God, it's torn. But My mind was like, no, no, no. One more. One more. Maybe it's because it's a changeup. Maybe I'm stepping too far across my body. There's no way that the thing that I worked on the most these past 5 years is the thing that's going to be the end of my career, the reason for my end of my career. So I'm like, if we're throwing a fastball here, I'm going to throw it nice and easy. I throw it, pops out even more. It feels like it barely pops back in. And then I call Joe Madden, which is the manager, and he comes out and he's talking to me, and it sounds like a Charlie Brown teacher, just womp, 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 womp. And I'm just sitting there like
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
get me off this field. So get off the field. They do the they check and all that stuff. I mean, wait. Oh,
Okay.
they check my range of motion, and then I get an MRI, and sure enough, it's torn. And at the time, my wife was 3 months pregnant or so, and that's whenever it started to come to me, like, I think this may be it. And it was kind of it was a rough transition, obviously, but I knew that there was something greater coming. That's my baby girl, right? So that kind of softened the blow a little bit, but it also didn't allow me to, I guess, mourn my career, because I went straight into being a dad.
You don't have to do the air quotes on that, because that really is, it's a season of mourning. Like
Yeah.
this is what your whole life has been built up to, right? And now you haven't, since you're 5 years old, you haven't thought about what's coming up
Yeah.
after your pro career, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to be a kid.
Yeah.
I was a kid all the way until I was 36 years old or whatever it was. Like, my wife had to handle all the bills and stuff because I had agents, I had people doing that for me. So there's a lot of things I didn't know about being an adult, because I was able to I was playing a game for my job, you know? So then it was tough because I was dealing with that. And then, I was trying to be present. I was trying not to allow, the thoughts of being a big leaguer and no longer doing that anymore, to not enter my mind, because I knew there was something more important. But pitching in a big league game in the pressure situations that I did against the people that I did, it's really hard to replicate. It's really hard to replicate the adrenaline, the feel that I had from something that was a dream and you achieved it. I never thought about outliving my dream. I knew that there was going to be some point where I wouldn't be able to be a baseball player anymore, for sure. I knew that, but I never thought about that because I can't allow what's coming next to enter my mind when I'm currently doing something. So when it finally did, it was when I was done, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, the thing that I was best at, I can't do anymore. I can't even throw a baseball. And like, that's the thing I did most of my life, and I can barely do that even now. You know, I still need surgery on my arm. So it was a surreal feeling. And I did a podcast. I started a podcast, and I kind of spoke openly about this. And I got so many responses from ex-military guys, like, calling me and was like, hey, that's exactly the way I felt when I left the military. And I'm like, hold up. Yours is way, like, you guys are going to battle. You guys are defending a country. I'm playing a game. So it kind of, this is where I needed my feelings validated, I guess. So it kind of validated those feelings a little bit when someone was that was in a far greater situation than me was telling me that it was okay to feel that, right? So that helped me deal with those feelings a little bit. But I think the thing that helped me deal with it most is just when we did have our baby girl, now I have two, seeing that they just love you and how much you love them. I even try to show my 3-year-old, like, because I always watch baseball now because I do a lot of media stuff and I'm in the broadcasting stuff. And I was showing her, like, oh, yeah, have you seen me pitch, baby girl? And she was like, no. And I said, all right. So I put it on. She was unimpressed. She was just like, okay. And it's like,
Kids will humble you.
and it was the greatest thing because I'm dad. I'm not the pitcher. I'm not the broadcast guy. When they see me on TV, they're like, oh, that's dad. But it's never like, that doesn't matter. It's more about me being there, you know? So
That's so good.
that kind of helped me, again, deal with it. And there's still waves of when, you know, that emotion will hit where I'm like, man, you know, it's kind of, because it kind of dulled a lot of things for me, for sure. So it's still a work in progress, and I'm still, you know, dealing with it. And there's some guys that it hits harder than others. And there's other guys, like one of my friends that was actually like my mentor, I guess, in baseball. As soon as he was done, he was like off living life and like, he's fine, nothing. And, and I asked him, I was like, so it was really just like a job to you? He's like, just a job, man. He was like, that's it. And I was like, I wish, well, I don't know if I would have been able to treat it just like a job, because I needed so much to be successful. I didn't have the attributes that he did.
That's right.
You know, so I needed my life to be baseball in order to have success, I felt like. And there's a price to pay for that. And, you know, I'm still paying it here and there, but for the most part, there's a lot more good that came from it than the negative feelings of not being it anymore.
That's so good. Such good perspective too. You had said something a little bit earlier about how it's so hard to replicate the adrenaline and the pressure that you feel when you're in that moment, when you're in the game.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you've had any of those moments since you've gotten out of being No,
not at all. It's such a different feeling, man. I can't even explain it. Like it's like taking a shot, like a few shots of espresso, and just the buzz you feel. And it's funny because I see now in other guys, I see them feel that same feeling, but that feeling makes them a worse player. It makes them, they recognize that energy as nerves. And a lot of times when you speak about nerves, it's in a negative connotation. You know, it's in like, oh no, you don't want to be nervous. For me, when I started to go to the next level, I recognized that nerves as energy. That is energy. Now, when you recognize it as energy, you can choose how to direct that energy. And it was a powerful energy. I could go in a bullpen whenever I could throw and throw as hard as I could, like max effort. And the fastest I'd be able to throw was like 90 miles an hour. I get in the game, I throw 70%, and I look back at the board, and it's 94. And it's such a crazy, like it was my superpower, that feeling. So to not be able to feel that, I think that's the thing that's going to be the hardest to get over, because again, that was my superpower. I've taken pre-workout. I work out a lot still, and I'm lifting heavy weight and all that stuff, but it still doesn't, I'm still chasing that feeling to get a little bit of it. I don't know. I think maybe watching my daughters perform, maybe I'll be nervous for sure. But maybe that will bring that. But it was the reason why I played the game, is that feeling right there.
Maybe a close second would be like getting to watch the birth of your daughter, your first daughter.
Yeah.
Do you want to go there?
I do. So that was nerve-wracking, for sure. That was a moment where there was buzzing going on. I quickly realized how much I actually took in during those. We had meetings because we did a home birth, and we had a doula and a midwife. And before that, you go in with the midwife in the early part of pregnancy, and you learn all the techniques. And I was sitting there, I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, but you're going to be there, so I won't have to worry about this too much, you know? But I still, took it in a little bit. And then my wife was going into labor. The doula lives an hour away, so we wanted to give her a heads up. We told her, hey, or the midwife, midwife lives an hour away. Hey, we're going into early labor. We should start, getting everybody here. Our doula came. Our doula was only supposed to be there to take pictures. We hired her as a photographer, but she doulaed on the side, or doulaed and photography on the side, whichever one. And the midwife was supposed to be there to deliver. And then things started to progress really fast. And we called the midwife, and she's like, I'm still 30 minutes away. So we were like, uh-oh. So we're like, all right, let's try to slow down the process a little bit. So we drew a warm bath. We had her in there, we're relaxing. And then she was like, I think she's coming out. And we were like, and we're trying to see, but it was candle lit, nice little lighting and stuff. And we're like, we got to see. So I go to turn on the light. And as I'm turning on the light, the doula was like, she's coming. And so I run over there, and the baby's out in the water already. And I'm like, she's here. And I grab her. Not 30 seconds later, our midwife walks in and was like, oh my God, but during that time when she was in that labor, in between that 30 minutes before she got there, my wife was in that labor. I was doing all the techniques that I learned. And I was like, how do I guess that would be the closest thing to pitching, because all these thoughts were racing through my head. And it was like, oh no, what if this happens? What if that? And then all of a sudden it just zoned into like, what do we need right now? Okay, she needs to be on her side. Okay, we need to rub her back. We need to put her legs this way. And we were like just
It's like
kind of
instinctive. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I really did retain some of that, So I helped her, and then so that right there, I guess would be, it's bigger because it's my daughter, but I hopefully don't have to experience that part again, me delivering a baby. But it was an amazing moment, and yeah, that was something that it was really, really cool. So we were excited about that. So it was my second daughter. I'm sorry. That was my second daughter.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I got that wrong earlier. But
Yeah.
so two girls, your wife, who's not from here. Now
No.
you guys are able to, you come back to Lubbock, you choose Lubbock to be the place that you raise your family. And I think that really kind of comes full circle, because you're able to not only have these life experiences that you had growing up here with your parents and with your family and the whole cheering section that they brought, getting to watch you play college ball. But what is it like now for you to be able to like have your girls around that atmosphere that was so foundational to you growing up, and to just be able to have family immersed really in all of the life seasons, now getting to watch you be a dad?
So it's really cool because, like I mentioned before, in the off seasons I lived in LA because I had a trainer out there, and I had facilities out there that I like to go to that would help me be, go to the next level for baseball. So from 2012 until 2019, I saw my family, my parents, 4 or 5 times a year, and I'd fly them out during the season wherever I was at. I come home for the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, but I rarely saw my family. Coming from where I saw my family every day all the way up until my senior year in college, right? And so it was even before. So 2009 until 2019, so like 10 years where I saw my family sporadically. And that was one of my biggest regrets, because again, when my life revolved around baseball was always number one. And my family never faulted me for that. They knew that had to be it. Like if something happened, I'd definitely go back to my family, but baseball was the most important thing. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but it had to be that way. And I hated that. And so after I was done playing, I lived in Arizona for 3 years, and I just hated that my daughters didn't get to spend time around my mom and dad. My mom, when she would leave, she's like, oh, she's going to forget about me. And I'm like, no, she's not going to forget about you. But then I think like every time my mom would come into town from visiting, my daughter would be standoffish, or they're like, oh, who is that? And so I felt bad about that. So when I got the job with the Marlins and I travel a lot, I thought, well, I need to be here because I have a big support system here. And now, I mean, I eat with my parents, we eat dinner 3 or 4 times a week, my sister, my brother, and all their kids, and they all get to hang out. My daughters love it. So it's such a fulfilling feeling to be able to be around my family, and because that's the most important thing. And that's after I was done playing, after I got over some of those feelings, I made a point that my family is first. Like I still have to work, I still got to do those things, but my family has to come first. It has to be family and then work, as opposed to where it was just baseball, then training, and then family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now being able to prioritize my family, it's such a great feeling, and I feel so grateful to be able to do that. And it's been awesome.
Man, life is so enriched by the people that we get to do it with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you talked a little bit about, your broadcast career. And I think just as we get close to completing this podcast, I just want to kind of know, like, what's next for you? We talked about that next season of life and the season of sort of discovering what that is. I know people who are watching this have been part of following your career for a really long time. And so tell us what we can expect of you coming up.
So I never really thought about being in the media. When I was growing up, from like 5 to 8 years old, I think, even probably before that, I had an intense stutter. I had to go to speech therapy. I had to do all that. And now, if you would have told that version of myself that years later, that the only way you would be able to hear me is through my voice, that would have been nerve-wracking. So it's a challenge still. The other part of it is whenever I was playing, I was so focused on what I needed to do that I didn't focus on what the rest of the team was doing. So now as a broadcaster, you got to describe everything else. And so that's also a challenge to kind of learn everything again, or just get the rhythm of everything. The other thing that is tough is when I am on camera and do pre and post games, you have 5 minutes to describe 10 things. And you're trying to.
That's so true.
And it's tough because you have to figure out how to deliver an effective message in a concise amount of time and still have good cadence, because that stuttering in me wants to come out. And what that is where my thoughts are getting jumbled and causing my mouth to move faster than I can think, basically. And so able to try to slow it down, try to deliver an effective message, try to deliver a message that resonates with people, and also refine my craft into, because there is a certain way I play the game, and so that means I see the game a certain way. So trying to give an effective message without using so many words has been a challenge, but it's been fun as well. And I do get nervous for that. It's a different type of nerves. It's funny, like I'll get like a face twitch every once in a while, and I'm like, what's going on?
That's never happened before.
Yeah, like what is this? But it's fun though. I like the challenge of it. This year I'll be doing a little bit more games than last year and be traveling. So I call the game on the radio for the Marlins, and then I do pre and post game every once in a while for them as well. And then I work on Sirius XM radio, the baseball channel. So I do that, and that's 3 hours of talking baseball. And then I'll probably be doing some college games as well coming up. So I think just an evolution in that of building my craft and maybe getting on a network or something like that, to where I do enough games to be fulfilled, but not enough to take away from my family.
The balance is important.
I got to have that balance. And I think baseball is obviously it's where I have most of my knowledge, and it's a good way. And I see some of the other, like I see Jeter and Big Papi, David Ortiz doing the post games and stuff, and they don't do it every day. They do it, weekly or something like that. So if I'm able to build a schedule like that to where I'm still involved in the game, because it does scratch that itch, and be able to give my knowledge and grow my knowledge in that space, I think that's great, because I still get to be home with my family. I still get to have Lubbock as my home base and prioritize my family.
I love that. Well, you're a natural. You did great here.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to just see what the future holds for you. And it's such a fun thing to get to see you kind of transition into this sort of next season of your life. And so thank you for doing this, and thanks for being vulnerable and for talking with us today on Fearless Unscripted.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.